So I'm going to give you a study plan for interviews that is unlike what you mostly read out there because the biggest problem with interview advice that I see people reading out there is that you're reading what's going to work for the top 1% of companies when you're not interviewing for the top 1% of companies, meaning Google, Apple, Amazon. You're not interviewing for these places. So why study like you're interviewing for these places? Here's my LeetCode list. Not really impressive by any stretch of the imagination. Wrong answer after wrong answer. I'm not glorifying like being wrong in LeetCode or, oh, you don't need to know data structures and algorithms. Absolutely, you do. Maybe that wasn't the answer you wanted to hear in this case, but yeah, for sure, you should know data structures and algorithms. Why like not be able to apply for a bunch of jobs because you refuse to learn data structures and algorithms? But learning how to interview well as a skill is not just about coding, because if it was, then every competitive programmer would have a spot at the biggest companies in the world, and they don't. So, what do you really need to know, and what are the common pitfalls people make? I'm going to tell you how I study for interviews, how I've been able to pass a ton of interviews over the years and get myself to a lot better positions than I was able to previously when I had zero clue what I was doing, and how I basically 3x my salary from basically just getting decent at interviews because, like it or not, it's the most high paying skill out there. But the way you're doing it is probably like how I was, just doing tons of LeetCode problems, and that's not going to help you out. So I'm all about patterns because studying 500 questions on LeetCode will kind of make you ready just by brute forcing your way through tons of problems. But the problem is, how do you even solve the problem? So you get there and just bumble around for a while, kind of figuring out, well, wait, how do I solve this? Does this require a tree? No, you need to have a different, more fundamental, foundationally focused approach. Learn the foundations, learn the patterns that you'll need to know to approach the majority of problems. I like this course a lot. I used this a long time ago when it was called Interview Cake. Educative has since taken over or bought this course or whatever. It's an excellent, excellent introduction on how to solve problems with patterns like sliding window or two pointers, fast pointers, all these different patterns that you can actually learn, which there aren't a ton of, right? You learn like these 17 patterns in this case, probably less. When are you going to get a topological sort in an interview question? You're not going to get that. You're not going to get K merge or top K elements. You might actually get modified binary search. You're certainly going to get that one, two heaps. Anyway, you can kind of pick and choose which ones are going to have the most bang for their buck in this case. This is like a $50 course or something like that. I actually went to Interview Kickstart and paid around $10,000 to learn data structures and algorithms after taking this course because I still wasn't too confident. And the reason I wasn't too confident is because I had no way of actually understanding or testing if I was ready to go to the big leagues. So I was preparing for an interview at Google. I had passed the phone challenge basically, where they call you on the phone and you share a screen and you go through a problem. I actually passed that and I was shocked. And it was because of all the studying I had done. Next, I was going to go on site, and I'm like, oh man, I really need to prepare for this. I got Interview Kickstart, still failed, by the way. Didn't make it at the on site. Did way better than I ever thought I would have, and it helped me pass tons of other interviews since then and helped me make a lot more money if I'm just being honest with you. And this is not to say that you should do this program or that program. What you should do is not try to find the course that is the correct one. What you should do is identify the patterns, and however you need to do that, whether it's buying a course or going online and researching, going to LeetCode or whatever, find the patterns, understand how these data structures and algorithms actually make sense and when to implement them. That way, all the problems you're going to approach are going to seem much more clear on what approach to use. Then the code becomes an implementation detail, right? The way that you solve these problems is not by rushing to write tons of code and just blowing through the problem. The way you do it is by talking with your interviewer and figuring out, what do I need to solve? Do I have the question correct? Am I sure I understand the question? And then coming up with, well, this sounds like it would be a binary search, or I think I'm going to use a sliding window approach. Then it becomes, well, how do I implement sliding window in this particular problem set? Do I understand the problem space? Let's agree upon the solution. Now let's implement the solution. And at that point, the implementation is kind of trivial because at big companies, they might not even want you to write real code. At a lot of other smaller companies, you're certainly going to be required to write real working code that you might test later. But you can pass an interview, as I have, without actually having a working solution because you at least came up with the right way to solve the problem, even if you didn't have time to finish the actual coding. If you can't write a for loop, of course, then yeah, you're going to be toast, come on. But back to a really important point. Interviews are not all about who can code the best. They're really not. They're matching you on a few different criteria, especially at smaller companies. Outside of the really big companies, they're making sure, like, do you pass the vibe check? Like, do you seem okay to work with? And maybe you are a weirdo. I don't know. Maybe you are a straight up weirdo and you can't help it and you're just weird. That's fine. There's tons of weirdos, but you have to learn how to at least appear more approachable, how to appear more friendly, maybe have a smile on your face. Learn how you look on camera and try to optimize for not being so weird. How do you do that? You practice with other humans. You practice with anonymous humans who are more likely to give you very, very direct feedback. This is actually one of the biggest and best unlocks I've had in my interview prep journey was working with pramp.com. It's free to up to a point. And if you see my history in here, I've used it quite a lot, right? I'm not just saying to use it because like you should use it. I'm saying it because I actually use this thing. It's been super, super helpful. I've really enjoyed using this because you're practicing speaking with a human. As much as you can do all this stuff in isolation and you can write code and you might be able to make things work, when you freeze up when a human asks you a question, that is something you can't prepare for. You have to get over those nerves because nerves will kill you in an interview much quicker than a problem will if you're an actual regular human being like I am and not a robot, right? Because when a human asks you something, you start sweating a little bit, get a little nervous, right? And then you're thinking, what would I normally do here? And your fingers turn to thumbs and you're just banging on the keyboard like a fool, right? You don't want to do that. So practice with a human. The reason why things make you nervous is because they're unique, right? If you go skydiving, your heart's pounding. You're like, oh my God, this is the craziest thing I've ever done. If you did it every day as a skydiving instructor, I can guarantee your heart's not going to be pounding out of your chest every single time you do it. If you run a mile one time in a year, like tomorrow's New Year's, right? And if you run a mile tomorrow to set off the New Year's or whatever, and your heart's going to be pounding like, oh my God, that was the craziest run ever. I can't believe I ran a mile. In a year, after doing that every day, you're going to be running 5 miles and it's going to be nothing. Then a mile will seem like nothing to you. You need to make the unique the routine. If you make the unique the routine, then you're not going to have those problems. And then you can actually focus on solving the problem and not worrying about your heart exploding out of your chest or whatever, or drinking tons of coffee before an interview and freaking out and having a panic attack like I almost did one time. Lastly, just record yourself like I'm doing right now, talking into a little camera, solving problems. And you actually see me here. Here's me on a video. I'm not going to play it for you, but solving a binary tree in order traversal problem on LeetCode. I'm going through this problem, solving it, speaking out loud, and telling people how I'm solving it because I want to know what I sound like on camera because most of your interviews are not going to be done in person anymore. They're going to be done on a screen like this. So how you appear on the screen and how you talk, you can look at that later and think, would I hire me? Would I not hire me? What can I do to appear more intelligent? Can I take some of the ums and ahs out of my sentences? I would suggest, honestly, that you get a loom.com account, maybe get the pro version if you want. I think it's pretty cheap, and record videos of you just going over your solutions. Like once you're done with the problem, go over the solution at least. And then when you want to take it a step further, when you're getting closer to interviews, actually record yourself doing the whole problem and walk yourself through the entire problem, what you're doing step by step by step, and think, are there any really long pauses there that come off kind of weird? Do I like me? Would I hire me? Is there something really weird in my background that I should probably X out or something like that? You wouldn't believe what I've seen in people's backgrounds from doing interviews as a hiring manager, like a pile of dirty laundry. Is that like going to mean we're not going to move forward to the next round? No. But are you starting off at a disadvantage a little bit from having that? Absolutely, because you've kind of given me an impression of you that's not the best at this point. So if I was on the fence a little bit, who knows what our minds are doing behind the scenes? We have unconscious and conscious biases that you want to avoid. Don't give the interviewer more reasons to activate biases they might already have. So, for example, having a decently clean background, all the junk you've heard people in HR say that you should be doing, do that stuff because we're humans at the end of the day, and you're being hired by another human, not an AI robot just yet. Hope that's helpful, and I have a cheat sheet I'm putting in the description of this as well to help you out to finally beat the freaking interview this year and hopefully make it the year you get a new job offer. I'm not even offering any interview prep course or anything like that. I don't want to do that kind of stuff anymore. I think it's fun to learn this stuff, but there's enough information out there for you to learn this on your own. I've done an interview kickstart. I'd recommend them. I've done Educative. I'd recommend them. I've done Stephen Greider's course on JavaScript with data structures and algorithms. I also recommend him. And let me not forget algoexpert.io. Excellent, excellent course. And they have a front-end expert.io too for us front-end focused people so we can actually pass those stupid JavaScript interviews where they have you recite what closure is or whatever. Anyway, I hope that's helpful, and I'll see you